My colleague and I embarked on a project where we asked 100 of the world's moral leaders, do we have an obligation to the future to leave a world as rich in possibilities as our own? We got back answers from all parts of the world, beautiful responses, and we put them together into a book we call Moral Ground. Some of the reasons why we have an obligation to the future have to do with just plain pragmatism. Climate change, species destruction, environmental degradation threaten the human species. And so just in the interest of egoism and self-interest, we ought to be addressing those issues. Some of the reasons have to do with justice. The degradation of the world is reaping a terrible injustice on people who have no blame. The industrialized economy is focusing its worst effects on those beings that have no ability to speak in their own defense. That would be plants and animals, children, people who are on the margins of the economy and on the margins of continents, and future generations. And the grief that is coming to them, the trials that they will face, are deeply undeserved. Children and future generations are the very definition of innocent, and yet they are the ones who will absorb the terrible pain and disruption that climate change will bring. The third set of reasons has to do with virtue. There are ideals that we have for ourselves. There are ways in which we think a virtuous person ought to act, primarily in terms of our own integrity. A person of integrity will live simply because she doesn't believe in taking more than her fair share. Or a person who loves the earth will act lovingly towards it because she loves it. And a person of integrity who feels grateful toward the earth will act with gratitude and respect. And so many of the reasons that we have an obligation to the future have to do with our own sense of ourselves as a moral being. How do I act toward the future in a way that makes me proud to be a human being? So you see, there are many, many ways to approach this question of our obligation to the future. It's wonderful to me to see that so many different knowledge systems are coming together around this very issue. The indigenous cultures, the ecological scientists, the evolutionary scientists, all the revolutions of the world, save for a couple fringe monotheistic religions, are all saying the same thing. We are part of a great, a beautiful, resilient whole. It is deeply interconnected, deeply interdependent, and we ourselves are privileged to live as part of this beautiful whole. And that creates certain obligations in us, obligations to treat the earth with respect, obligations to act with restraint, obligations to embody our love for this planet, our love for these webs of connection in our own actions, so that we can make our lives into works of art that express our deepest values. I think that's the point.